Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today I'll be playing another quick draft of Dominaria United. Without further ado, let's get into the draft. Pretty unexciting rare today. Miria is cool in theory, but this format does not have a lot of good artifacts. She'd be a pretty cool card if she showed up in Brothers War or something, but not really going to play out well in a draft of Dominaria United. As for the uncommons, they're also pretty weak. Yosha Declares War, very narrow and slow. Hurler Cyclops is pretty filler, and Cleaving Skyrider is the best uncommon, and I think it would be a reasonable first pick out of this pack. It's decent in a blue-white deck because it gives you a flash creature, and it's pretty nice in a red-white deck with that kicker effect to be able to deal a bunch of damage. But it is a little bit narrow, and it's not incredible, it's just solid in both of those archetypes. As for commons here, we don't have anything super sweet, but I think Essence Scatter is the best card in the pack. I think this plays really well in almost every blue deck, maybe not a domain-focused blue deck where you're going to be tapping out during your turn all the time, but most of the blue decks in the format, be it blue-red, blue-white, or blue-black, can make a very good use of a cheap counterspell like this. Counterspells just play really well in the format. It's a bit of a slower format, and a lot of creatures have great enter-the-battlefield value effects, so being able to counter them instead of just remove them plays quite well, and I'm a big fan of Essence Scatter, so I'm going to start off the draft with that. Pack 1, Pick 2, we have some really good follow-ups to that. All of the uncommons in this pack are incredible. There's decent commons as well, Urborg Repossession being great, Graveyard Recursion later, and Talus Lookout being a solid value flyer. But these uncommons are incredible, so I'm going to scoop up one of them. We have Terra Sunder, that is off color. It's a really good removal spell though. 1 and a green to exile an artifact or enchantment, or 2 a black and a green to exile any non-land permanent. Either of those is an excellent deal, especially the 4-mana version. And then we have 2 blue-white cards that are both really good. So the blue-white deck, as you can see off of Wrath here, is a deck that has a lot of instants and sorceries, as well as a lot of creatures. So it's an archetype where both Wrath and Protect the Negotiators fit in incredibly well. Protect the Negotiators is a little bit more flexible than Wrath, so I think I'll take it first, because you don't always have to kick this for it to be decent, whereas with Wrath you obviously have to be blue-white, you have to spend both colors to cast the spell in the first place, but I think they're both pretty incredible. So I'm going to go with Protect the Negotiators here, sticking to our blue, grabbing another counterspell, seeing if we can push into that blue-white creature token and counterspell sort of archetype. Pick 3, there are no great follow-ups to stick to blue or blue-white even. I don't think either of these white cards are particularly high picks for me. The Drawbridge plays very well in Defender archetypes, but doesn't really do anything in other decks. And Vanguard is super filler. Out of blue, Tide Turner and Soaring Drake are pretty filler, and then Timely Interference is just good if you have a bunch of Tolarian Terrors and stuff and you want to fill your graveyard. So Timely Interference, I think out of the blue and white cards would be my pick, but I think it's weak enough that I'd be interested in just taking something completely off color like Elas Ilkor for a black-white sacrifice sort of deck. This can play really well. Could also go for Shadow Prophecy, which is a powerful draw spell if you're running 3 or more colors, which maybe we would be like blue, black, white or something. Or we could take Yavimaya Sojourner towards a domain strategy. I think I want to go with Elas Ilkor. I think the card's pretty cool and pretty strong. I don't think it's super likely that I'm going to be very happy with anything I take here, so I think it's okay to take something that's a bit of a stretch that might not make the cut. We might not pivot towards black-white, but decent sign here, Pack 1, Pick 4, seeing no blue cards and only 1, well I guess 2 white cards, but they're both aggressive ones. They're like combat trick sort of spells. So good sign to maybe hop off the blue-white train. That being said, I think the stronger place to push now instead of black-white aristocrats is a green domain strategy, because that's a Pick 4 Nishoba Brawler, which can be a 2-mana 5/3 trample if your domain works out well, which is completely absurd. But even as a 2-mana 2/3 trample, which is what it's going to be at the bare minimum pretty much, it's a solid card. And again, anything above that, 2-mana 3/3 trample, 2-mana 4/3 trample, completely absurd. So Nishoba Brawler is absolutely nuts. There is an on-color rare with Elas Ilkor heading to white-black, but it is very narrow. It's kind of like just a 4-mana 3/3 Vigilance, unless you can get a lot of legendary creatures. We would have at least one more legendary to go with Ratadrabic, but there's only one legend in every pack, and obviously they're not all going to fit into white and black, so we'd probably have to do some splashing to get enough legends for this to do much, so much more excited about the Nishoba Brawler. We're going to take that now. Kind of wish I took the Sojourner in hindsight. Obviously that would play out incredibly, Sojourner into Brawler for the domain pivot, but we'll see. Pack 1, pick 5 now. Some more very strong cards here. I think the best card for pushing into a domain strategy would be Urg, Spawn of Turg, but it is kind of a hefty, difficult mana cost requiring double black and 1 green. Currently we have 1 black card total, and that's Elas Ilkor. Alternatively, there's Argivian Cavalier, which is going to play really well in a blue-white deck if we manage to stick with our Essence Scatter and protect the Negotiators, and it's going to play really well in a black-white deck if we go for the black-white Sacrifice Sorted deck with Elas Ilkor. So I think I like Argivian Cavalier a lot here as the most flexible pickup, and push comes to shove, worst-case scenario, it can end up in a domain deck. Like, it only requires 1 white mana, so it'll give us 2 bodies off 1 card, even off of a white splash in a domain deck, so I think Argivian Cavalier is the most flexible card here by a lot, so I'll scoop that up. Take Up the Shield is a great combat trick, but it tends to go incredibly late in these bot drafts, and it's more important to get the creatures ready first and then Take Up the Shields later, based on how the bots draft. We'll take that Argivian Cavalier, and white looks great here, because pick 6, we now have the competition between another Argivian Cavalier and Resolute Reinforcements. These two are the best cards in the pack by far. I think I want to take Resolute Reinforcements because, again, it's going to be almost as good as Argivian Cavalier, maybe just as good since it's cheaper. Yeah, it's probably just as good as Cavalier in the black-white deck, and it's going to be much better in the blue-white deck because it lets us easily hold up an Essence Scatter and just flash in a creature if we don't end up casting it, so love me a Resolute Reinforcements, and it's another great flexible card. Fits into blue-white or blue-black, or sorry, blue-white or white-black super, super well, so let's grab that Reinforcements now. Pack 1, pick 7, we have a Runic Shot that would be decent in a blue-white deck or a white-black deck, and then a Tolarian Geyser that would be excellent in a blue-white deck, but obviously wouldn't fit in the black-white at all. I think I'm okay taking the less flexible card here to get the much better card. I really like Tolarian Geyser, whereas there are a lot of removal spells that I would prefer to run over Runic Shot. I prefer to have, if I'm blue-white, definitely prefer to have just a lot of counter spells and some Destroy Evils for instant speed removal. And if I'm black-white, then I like having a bunch of Extinguish the Lights and the -2/-2 instant. I forget what that one's called. Bone Splinters even works well. So there are removal spells and interaction that I prefer in either of the archetypes that the Runic Shot would end up in here. So take the Tolarian Geyser. I feel like it's less replaceable. And that's a pick 8 Resolute Reinforcements, which is another phenomenal inclusion to blue-white or white-black. Pack 1, pick 9, we have Timely Interference versus Captain's Call versus Sunlit Marsh primarily. Sunlit Marsh would make it a little more possible to play all 3 of these colors in some extent, a little bit of splashing. We could just be a blue-white deck and splash in an Elas Ilkor if we get a couple black dual lands. Captain's Call is a great deck for either archetype because both of these archetypes want to be able to create a wide board of creatures, the white-black deck to sacrifice them, and the blue-white deck to buff them up or use them to tap with Wrath and stuff like that. So I like this Captain's Call a lot. There's also Timely Interference. I think it's really good in a deck that runs Tolarian Terrors because those get cheaper for each instant and sorcery in your grave. This is a really cheap one to cycle really quickly. But we don't have any Tolarian Terrors yet, and if we end up white-black not playing the blue, then it's obviously not going to make the cut, so Captain's Call is the most flexible. Sunlit Marsh, I think, has the highest upside, and, well, maybe Timely Interference is the highest upside, and then Sunlit Marsh is kind of in between, where it's flexible, but also gives us some pretty high upside if we do some 3-color splashy stuff. I think I'm going to go for the Sunlit Marsh. I'm going to hope. I don't think I want to run like 3 or 4 Captain's Calls, so I think I only need to pick up 1 or 2 throughout the draft. So I'm going to take the dual lands a little higher for now and grab the Sunlit Marsh. I think one thing worth mentioning, Mesa Cavalier is a playable card, but I think Captain's Call is much better for both of these archetypes because they're both go wide kind of archetypes where you want a wide board state. Almost every white archetype in the format wants to have a really wide board of creatures, which makes singular spells like Mesa Cavalier a lot weaker. When you have cards like Captain's Call that make 3 creatures, Reinforcements makes 2, Cavalier makes 2, there's just so many ways to benefit from having a wide board that the Mesa Cavalier is not that exciting, so that's why I didn't mention it. But I'll mention it now for those newer to the format. We'll take a Sunlit Marsh. Go from there. Pack 1, pick 10. Shore Up is great if you have a creature that really needs to be protected. We kind of don't in blue-white, which is obviously the only deck this would fit in. I can't play it in my white-black deck if we go in that direction. So I actually don't think Shore Up's that nuts. This card is phenomenal in the blue-red decks, and pretty good if you have a bunch of like Tolarian Terror gigantic creatures. But when it's just a bunch of token producing 1/1s and 2/2s and stuff, we have nothing to protect. Let's just grab a Captain's Call to fit into blue-white or white-black easily. Repossession's probably the strongest card in this pack, but it is kind of a dedicated black-green gold card because that's where it's strong if you can return 2 cards with it. So Captain's Call is going to be my choice there. Pack 1, pick 11. Could take a Shadow Prophecy in case we do splash in black, then this would be a pretty good card draw spell. Clockwork Drawbridge is, again, just very mediocre, very medium, unless you have Defender synergies. If you do have Defender synergies, it's great. Let's grab Shadow Prophecy. The Gibbering Barricade was a fine pick there as well. That would synergize well with a deck with a bunch of token production. Let's grab a Relic of Legends, I guess. I'm not super high on Mana Worker, even though it's fine fixing. I think Relic of Legends can do more explosive stuff. Although I do end up usually cutting that more often than not as well. Alright, pack 2, pick 1. What do we got here? We've got Aaron Benalia's Ruin for black-white, although we are much more committed to blue-white, and Aaron is a very restrictive mana cost, so not super high on that. Captain's Call would be nice and flexible, and then Stall for Time would be pretty great in blue-white. Not very good in black-white. I think we are getting pretty focused up on blue-white here, where that is very, very likely to be the deck. So I think I could take a Stall for Time. It's going to be our first kind of interaction for something that's actually resolved for creatures that are on the board. The rest of our interaction is either bouncing them back to hand or countering them. This like taps them down for a while, helps us get attacks in. So it's a unique effect that we don't have in our deck yet. We already have good amount of token productions with 2 reinforcements, a Cavalier, and a Call. So I don't think I need another token producer this early. We'll take a Stall for Time for variety here. Best cards in the pack for us being Stall for Time, Captain's Call, and I guess Aaron, if we wanted to go black-white. Not an incredible pack to open up for us, though. Alright, this pack actually looks super sweet. There are 3 very good options. There's Love Song of Night and Day. You basically always skip over Chapter 1, in which case you'll get a 1/1 flyer, then put a counter on 2 of your creatures next turn. So a 2/2 flyer and a +1/+1 counter for 3 mana. Pretty good deal. There's Tura Kenurid, which is pretty slow, but it can really pop off if you can protect it late in the game and just keep casting all of your interaction, like Stall for Time, Tolarian Geyser, some counter spells. And then there's Argivian Phalanx, which is a solid card for any deck making a lot of tokens, which definitely looks like our deck is doing that. I think I'd like to commit to blue-white at this point and take a very sweet build round kind of payoff here. It is very big, very slow and dirty, so even if I was 100% committed to blue-white, I think Love Song of Night and Day or Phalanx are still really reasonable picks. Even if you're guaranteed to be in blue-white, I don't think you have to take Tura Kenurid here. But I'd like something pretty sweet on the top end now, when I have 2 great 2-drops, a 3-drop, and a 4-drop. Don't really have any like top-end finishing sort of things, and Kenurid fits that bill decently enough. Pack 2, pick 3. We could go for a Tribute to Urborg off the splash, and this would be a really good card to splash in. It only requires 1 black mana, and it benefits from filling our grave with a bunch of instants and sorceries, something that we're already doing. So this would be a great removal spell off of a splash with our Sunlit Marsh and any other duels we get to pick up. I think that's super reasonable. We could also go for Take Up the Shield for the on-color instant. strongest on-color instant in the pack. It's a really nice combat trick, but I think I want to get some hard removal into the deck and take a tribute to Urborg. Griffin Protector I think would be the third best behind these two, because it is very strong with token production, but less good with a bunch of instants and stuff. But we do have a lot of token production for the Griffin Protector. Alright, pack 2, pick 4. I'm not in love with any of these blue or white cards. Academy Wall can be a solid little card filtering engine. You have to draw and discard and loot every time you're casting an instant or sorcery spell, but again, not incredible unless you're defenders. I'm going to take another Sunlit Marsh. Get some very nice fixing for the Black Splash. And speaking of the Black Splash, we get another tribute to Urborg now. Could also take the on-color Geyser, but with double Sunlit Marsh now, we're pretty guaranteed to be on this tribute to Urborg Splash. Could be very nice for us. Pack 2, pick 6. I think I'll take my second copy of Shore Up over my second copy of... Pack 2, pick 6. I think I'll take my first copy of Shore Up over my second copy of Stall for Time, because now we do have at least one card we really want to protect with Tura Kenurid. Shore Up is going to play really nicely with that, so I'll grab a Shore Up here. Really powerful domain stuff in this pack. Miria's Outrider for the 5-color domain deck, and Tachiova for any domain deck that's at least touching blue a tiny bit. All domain decks are green at the core, so Tachiova is pretty easy to cast. Turn 6 or turn 7, you cast Tachiova, then play your 7th land and pop off. So 2 really strong domain cards. So a little sad not to be there, but our deck's looking pretty sweet. I think we'll be okay. Now we can grab a Take Up the Shield. Rona double black's just too hard for us right now, and they're not that exciting of a card. Artillery Blast is only tapped creatures. It's not the greatest. Soaring Drake is just fine. Take Up the Shield. Alright, I'm splashing a bit of black. With Phyrexian Espionage, we can cast this off of our main colors, and then if we do have a Sunlit Marsh on board, we get extra value from the kicker. Like that. Like that a good amount. Pack 2, pick 9, we have a couple fine filler creatures, and then the very solid Shore Up, but again, I only have one card really to protect with Shore Up late game, so I don't know how spicy or necessary that is. Yeah, I should probably just take a filler creature. This is our entire creature curve. We don't need a million creatures in this deck, but we probably want more than like 5. So we'll grab Haunting Figment or Tide Turner. Tide Turner can ramp up for instants and sorceries, but they're all like 3 mana maximum anyway. Not that hard to cast. I think I'll take Figment here. I'll take the filler 3-drop this time over the filler 2-drop. Flyers do play pretty decently, and 3 toughness is nice. Most of the 2-drops in the format are 2 mana 2/2s. We'll take a Soaring Drake. It's just an Impede Momentum I won't be playing. Wow, black is open. Good lord. These are all strong cards. I don't think any of them are going to get splashed in, no matter what, but maybe something weird happens and we end up black, white, splash, blue. Take a solid like Knight of Dusk's Shadow as the strongest cheap creature there. And if we're going to get just a bunch of incredible black cards that late, maybe we're black, white, splash, blue instead of blue, white, splash, black. We'll have that in the back of our mind heading into pack number 3. Alright, well, Phyrexian Missionary is a great card. A 2 mana 2/3 lifelinker is already kind of absurd, and 4 mana for a 2/3 lifelinker and Graveyard Recursion is nuts. So if we're splashing black, or if we're just black-white, Phyrexian Missionary is going to be incredible. We'd love to wheel Sunlit Marsh to go with this. If we don't wheel that, maybe wheel a Phyrexian Warhorse if we push towards black-white, but that seems pretty sweet. Let's take a Phyrexian Missionary here. Alright, pack 3, pick 2. Essence Scatter and Impulse are both great for a blue-white deck. Phyrexian Warhorse is great for a black-white deck. I mean, I like our curve a lot if we're black-white. Then, how many cards would we even have right now? Be cutting 10 cards, so I'd have 14. in black-white. I need to find 9 playables this pack to be strictly black-white. What are our best blue cards? We have Turek Henurid, Tolarian Geyser that are great. Espionage is pretty good. Tide Turner is super filler. Illusionist is super filler. Shore Up doesn't look great in this deck. Figment is super filler. Drake is pretty filler. These are both great too, though. So we have 4 great blue cards. 1 pretty good blue card, and then a bunch of bad to good filler. In black, we have 4 great cards as well, basically. 2 Tribute to Urborg, Knight of Dust Shadow, and Elas Ilkor. It's so close. We're more tied to white than anything else. Guaranteed. Because 2 Reinforcements, Cavalier, Phyrexian Missionary is already 4 great cards, just like the other colors. Take Up the Shield is a 5th great card. And Captain's Call and Stall for Time are both good. You know, in the interest of doing something different here, I think I'm going to try for that black-white pivot. Worst case scenario, we can splash a bit of blue to get our 23 non-land playables. Best case scenario, we get to play a black-white Aristocrats deck today and do something different than what we've been doing lately. We've done like a blue-black control deck and a blue-white control deck and a bunch of domain. Haven't really gone for a 2-color, more aggressive archetype, but I've played a lot of blue 2-color decks, so see if we can get out of blue here and grab a Phyrexian Warhorse. Alright, we've got a Destroy Evil now in white or a Phyrexian Rager in black. Already have double Tribute to Urborg for removal and a Take Up the Shield for a combat trick. I do think Destroy Evil is great, but the bots do pass these kind of spells really late, so we might be able to wheel it. I don't think we'll wheel Phyrexian Rager, and that fits into the curve really, really well. So I'm going to take Rager over Destroy Evil and Take Up the Shield. I think we'll get one of those 2 back, and either would be a great addition. This is another hard choice pack 3 pick 4. There's Argivian Cavalier competing with Colt Conscript. I think I want to take the Colt Conscript here because having a 1-drop is super sweet. And this is pretty easy to return to the battlefield. We have a lot of other creatures thanks to token production, and none of them are skeletons. So when any other creature dies, if we have 2 mana up, we get to bring this back to the board. So I really like having a 1-drop in an aggressive archetype like this. So I'm going to take Conscript over Cavalier. And again, we're going to pass up on Destroy Evil and Take Up the Shield because the bots don't really take them highly. If this were Premier Draft, these would be very high on the table in the pick order, but we probably wheel one from last pack or this pack, and that should be fine. We already have 2 tributes and 1 Take Up, so we don't need too much more in the interaction department. All right, Impulse is the best card in this pack. That card is phenomenal in blue decks. However, I'm committing myself to black-white now, so the best cards are Gibbering Barricade to sacrifice our tokens or Charismatic Vanguard to buff them. These are both on the good end of filler cards for this archetype, so take a good filler card either way. I'll go for some value here. Let's get the Gibbering Barricade, get some card draw, and that Barricade can play really well with these Colt Conscripts, potentially. Let's grab another Colt Conscript. Come on in, join the party. All right, pack 3, pick 7. We're going to get some poop here. There's so many impulses going around. That's wild. This card is highly underrated, I think. At least by the bots, for sure. But I know in my last draft, I picked an impulse over like the 4-mana 3/2 flyer that draws a card when it dies, and I think it was just 100% the right pick for that deck with a bunch of counter spells and stuff, and it played out super, super well. But I know a lot, the comment section was definitely like, what? What? No, Impulse is very, very good. So, for black-white, I don't think we want to end up playing any of these, but the most likely is probably Drawbridge. Another 1-drop, I guess. We can maybe cycle it away with Barricade later. Okay, pack 3, pick 8. I'd happily play a Necromass. I guess every single pack, every single booster pack of pack 3 just contained an Impulse in it. Wild. Just take a Writhing Necromass. Now I'll take another Phyrexian Warhorse and be happy with that. But at some point you probably start taking the Impulses, but no, we'll just take Mana Worker. There's that Destroy Evil wheel I was talking about. Come on in. Did not wheel one out of each pack, but we wheeled one out of the 2 packs, which is good enough to wrap up the deck here. That's 23 cards. That's an entire deck without a splash. The deck might be stronger with a splash still, but we could absolutely go for the 23 card Black-White Aristocrats pile. Let's see. So double Sunlit Marsh, 100%, and then call it a deck, or I guess our blue stuff isn't the most splashable ever. Like counter spells you can't really splash because you want to have them early. Ideally, you could splash in like 1 Espionage, but adding a bunch of islands for that is awkward, or the Geyser. Yeah, I think I'm happy to just play a couple more mediocre filler cards like Salvage Mana Worker and Clockwork Drawbridge in order to be this 2-color deck. And now the Mana Worker's just in here to be able to kick the Tribute to Urborgs. This seems fine. I don't think I play an island just for Tribute to Urborgs, but maybe with double Sunlit Marsh that shouldn't hurt our mana base that much. Yeah, I mean, we blue splash for Tribute to Urborgs, and I guess Shadow Prophecy Domain. Because we have 10 black sources and 9 white sources right now, thanks to having 2 Sunlit Marshes. So I could cut a Swamp and a Plains, and I'm still on a 9-8 split, which is your average deck that doesn't have non-basics. Then I get to play 2 islands. Yeah, actually having the double Sunlit Marsh here I think makes the little blue splash pretty reasonable. In which case I could throw in that Phyrexian Espionage, which I think would be fine. That's probably better than Clockwork Drawbridge or something. Be the 5 mana big draw spell, this 4 mana removal. I want to keep Mana Worker in here for the kickers and stuff. Yeah, I don't think Drawbridge is super good in this deck. I think I'd like to cut Drawbridge. What is our creature count? It's whatever it is plus 1, because we have Captain's Call as well. 16, so 17, drop a Drawbridge, it's still basically 16 with Captain's Call. Yeah, seems good to me. We will cut a Clockwork Drawbridge and call it a deck there. Alright, here's a look at our final deck for today, which is going to be a Black-White Tokens Sacrifice deck, or a Black-White Aristocrats strategy. It's pretty aggressive. We have 2 1-mana 2/1s, tons of 2-power creatures at 2 mana, and creatures that make 2 1/1s. A lot of good value plays at 3 mana with Phyrexian Rager and Barricade to draw cards, Cavalier to spit out multiple creatures, great value play from Missionary on turn 4, then some good finishers with Writhing Necromass as a large death toucher, and Phyrexian Warhorse as a potentially massive attacker late in the game. So good, solid, aggressive curve here. Great removal to back it up with 2 Tribute to Urborgs for early, smaller creatures, or for later creatures if we hit our blue splash off of our islands or Mana Worker. We also have Take Up the Shield to win during combat and gain a bunch of life, and Stall for Time to slow our opponent down. So all those ways to clear the path to keep beating them down with these creatures. We've got Destroy Evil for their big late game threats, Phyrexian Espionage and Shadow Prophecy for some card draw to keep us playing more spells late in the game. Seems like a very solid deck in general. The only thing not going for it is we didn't get any bomb rares in our draft pod, but it happens. Overall, very average, very reasonable Black-White deck, and I'm pretty excited to see how it does as we head into the gameplay. Alright, this is the worst hand possible in our deck. Those are our 2 islands, so we're going to have to take a mulligan here. And this is pretty reasonable. Turn 1 Cult Conscript. I think we get rid of a land here. We've already got the cantrip of Stall for Time letting us draw 1 more card, digging for the 4th land. And we've got several draw steps before we need the 4th mana. Our opponent is going to curve out with Steel Crusher turn 2. Send in the Cult Conscript here, offer the trade. They are not going to take the trade. I'll drop a Mana Worker here, and they could trade the Steel Crusher into that, because it has an ability to sack and destroy an artifact, but that's fine. Trade their 2-drop for my 2-drop. Alduvian Berserker. Pretty powerful if it dies after it enlists. So we gotta make sure that doesn't happen. And I can't attack into that because of that 3 toughness. That's a little annoying. Let's just drop a Splatter Goblin and pass, I think. I don't think I need to stall for time just yet. I'd like to wait on the Phyrexian Warhorse until I have 5 mana. I don't think I'm playing it turn 4. I think I'm still going to stall for time first and get that card draw. I think I'd be okay with casting an unkicked stall for time. That seems fine to me. Send in the Berserker, hit for 3. If I block with Splatter Goblin, then I'm -1/-1 and it gets to do 2 damage to a target, so it also kills my Conscript. Now let's take 3. For now. They're going to play a Baird. Wow, that plays really badly for me. If I'd killed it, then Baird would not trigger and would not give them a 1/1. Don't have the second black for Knight of Dusk Shadow's buff ability here. Should be playing a 2/2 and passing. Don't think Stall for Time looks particularly powerful here anyway. I guess Mana Worker gives me the black. So this is a 3/3 blocker. Yeah, because I can use Mana Worker during my opponent's turn. So attack as a 3/3 Berserker again. Alright, let's see their combat trick. Would be pretty bad for me. But if they don't have a combat trick and I double block, I'm just losing 3 creatures when I don't need to. If I lose Splatter Goblin to a combat trick, like that's fine. I'd only lose 1 card because it's not like a combat trick kills another one of my creatures. Because the Berserker's death trigger wouldn't happen. If it doesn't die, obviously. Yeah, they actually don't have good targets for Berserker, so they just shoot my face, yeah, because if they target Knight of Dusk Shadow, then I buff it. If they target the Conscript, I return it from grave because a non-skeleton died. So we actually find the 1-for-1 trade this turn. So that played really well for us. And here's the 5th mana for Warhorse so that we can have tons of blockers. And pass the turn. Could also stall for time pass. I think I'd rather expand the board here. Boom. There's a mountain of creatures. Not a literal mountain, we're not playing red. Send in a Miria's Outrider. I will take 4 for now, go to 9. Keldon's Strike Team, that is a wide board. They have the +2/+1 instant, we are going to die, basically. And I can't break through that board state. I need to draw some straight gas here. Do I stall for time right now? I do kind of get hit a lot if I don't. And this cycles and lets me try to dig for something that could get me towards a wide enough board state to start attacking. Alright. Find a land and a Resolute Reinforcements. Yeah, we've got a lot of card draw in this deck. I think that's probably our best bet. Hitting Phyrexian Espionage and the Domain card draw spell. Just trying to out-card advantage them this late in the game. They should not have as much card draw as us since they're in red-white. Alright. Things aren't going terribly, but the longer it takes us to find a way to crack in, the more likely they are to draw the +2/+1 to their whole board spell. And if they kick it, it's +2/+1 and trample to everybody, and we'll just die. I attack with Warhorse and they don't +2/+1 me. I think I have good enough blockers to still block everything. It's kind of hard though. I think I'll wait one more turn. But then I should probably start sending something in like the Warhorse. They're going to send in the Miria's Outrider. Have to sack 2 cards to kill that. With Warhorse. Or I could double buff Knight of Dusk's Shadow. And I could also... This plays around tricks the best. If I do this, then I don't really care that much if they use some kind of trick, because I just bring my skeleton back. I lose 1 card to their combat trick or removal spell. Just a 1-for-1 trade. Okay, so I lose Argivian Cavalier to their combat trick, and that's it. That is A-okay. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that blocking choice there. And I can counter their life gain for fun. For a slight amount of actual value. Oh, they get a +1/+1 counter from that take up the shield though, so now they get another 1/1 every turn. They start overwhelming us here. Baird is popping off. Just gotta be on blocks. Yeah, Baird's just gonna win them this game. I have not drawn any removal spells, and they now have the guaranteed 1/1 every end step. Now they can filter out of any lands they draw to draw straight gas. Nothing great to bring back with Missionary. Guess I can Missionary back the Warhorse. If they don't just trump it with a 1/1. They might just trump it with a 1/1 at this point because they have so many creatures and they're getting another one every turn. 5 1/1s. I can sack a single creature to trade off here. So I sack the skeleton because I can bring it back. Let the horse die. 7 mana, 4 for this, 2 for this, yeah. I've got the mana to do that. I don't get to replay the Warhorse this turn, but I think I survive without a Warhorse. And I kill a lot of creatures this way. I guess I could recast the Warhorse instead, but it would be unkicked. I want to get the max value and kick it, so that'll be for next turn. It is a pretty good attack for them. If they don't have a combat trick, though, we actually get to kill the +1/+1 counter card, which is good for stopping Baird. So let's see what they've got. If they've got the trick, it's... Ooh. It's gonna be bad. But I also, like... I can't afford to play around Flowstone Infusion by blocking with, like, everybody, because then... they just kill all my 1/1s and have too many creatures for me to block, and I die next turn. So I don't really think I could have blocked much better than that. I think I just had to hope they didn't have something like Flowstone Infusion. Because the only blocks that would guarantee killing the 5/5 through the Infusion would also guarantee killing like 5 of my 1/1s. And then I have very few blockers this turn. That is so many Keldon Strike teams, Jesus. I'm over here with all my 2-for-1s, and they're just like 3-for-1, 3-for-1, 3-for-1. 3 bodies off 1 card, let's go. Baird has probably made 6 1-1s by now. Oh, I guess I can gain 1,000,000 life, which is cute. They probably just block with a 1-1 at this point. They're getting really close to a crackback for lethal after just trumping. No, they're gonna let me kill 6 1-1s. Okay. Yeah, if I take up the shield and sack 1 card, then that's 6 power. I guess I probably still sack the skeleton, even though I can't bring it back this turn. It'll be easier to bring back later than anything else. I could sack a 1-1 to bring it back this turn. Get 2 more life off of this. But I think I'm just going to leave it in the grave. And the maximum number of creatures possible. I guess it's the same number of creatures, whether it's a 1-1 on my board or a 2-1 on my board. But the 2-1 will be tapped. And then if I end up having to trump block this turn, I'd be down 1 creature. Whereas if I bring this back after a trump block, then I get to keep just as many creatures. I don't know. Goblin Picker's popping off. Discard a mountain, draw a card, dig for the goods. Baird's still popping off. Get another 1-1. There is finally a tribute to Urborg for Baird. I might as well kick this to play around to take up the shield. And I'm just going to do it main phase. Play around a top deck from them. Okay, so this is the actual board state forever now. I mean, outside of us playing a creature, it's 9 creatures to 8. Okay, I don't think I'm attacking, but I'm not under too much pressure. We are in a straight up top deck war. Now I'm under a lot of pressure. Balduvian Berserker does change that. That attacks as a 6 power creature that if I kill it deals 6 damage to one of my cards, so they can kill the Warhorse if I kill it on a block, which is pretty bad for me. Probably on like Chump Reanimate a Skeleton here. Or just bite the bullet and let them kill the Warhorse now so that they don't end up killing 3 or 4 1-1s with this over time. Like, what's worst for me? Losing 1 Warhorse or like 4 1-1s? It might be worse to lose 1 Warhorse. Legitimately. I can just take 6 for now. I'm at 17. But I will, I think, have to start blocking with 1-1s. If we had like an Elas Ilcore from the start of this game, that would have gained so much life and made my opponent lose so much life. That would have been sick. Another Cavalier, another 2-for-1 creature. 2/2 and a 1/1, get that board state wide. Our opponent is milling out before us, which might be our best win condition at this point. But we need to survive a long time for that. They have 14 cards left. Prayer of Binding. Alright, that's gonna kind of break the board stall. That probably finishes us. Slowly but surely, we are finally coming to an end of this game. So I'm okay with losing at this point, as long as the game ends. It's been one of the longest board stalls in a while. We look really close to dead on board now. They have like 4 strike teams. This is insane. Bots were like, Boros, what's that? Missed me with that. Yeah, this is just an incredibly high power deck from our opponent. We would have had to draw super well to compete here. Alright, I don't have a... Well, if I somehow crack back 1, 2, 3, 8, and I crack back for 9. It's not worth the time investment here. To go through the math, we do not win this game. Alright, here we are. Game number 2, pretty unkeepable mana again. Now we've got 3 color hand, that's nice. Drop the Splatter Goblin here. Get our turn 1 Colt Conscript. Again, we've had really bad mana in both of our hands. The start of game 1, start of game 2 here, which is pretty rough, but our numbers are 9 white sources, 8 black sources, which is the same as your average limited mana base, so it's not really the splash's fault. I mean, we could have had a ridiculously consistent mana base if I didn't splash, but we have a perfectly average level of consistency. In this mana base, we've just had some bad draws. 9-8 split today. Thanks to our dual lands. Yeah, if I didn't have a blue splash, then we would be on an 11-10 split, and it would be like impossible to have mana issues, but still shouldn't happen that frequently. Just not a great start. Not great opening hands. Alright, our opponent's on the defensive here. They're down to 11. They are playing some really good stuff now, though. The Weather Seed Treaty. It's going to get them a land for domain and ramp. It's going to give them a 1/1 blocker to block my Colt Conscript with. And more importantly, they're going to be at 6 mana now if they play a land for turn. So Sunbathing Rootwalla, that's definitely a good one. They don't have a land for turn, so let's tribute to Urborg the Rootwalla. Unless they have a combat trick. Can't do anything about that. I don't have any instants or sorceries in grave. They don't have a combat trick. Could tribute the Sapperling, but then I'm out of cards here because I was on a mole on the play. If I do that, I guaranteed hit them for 3. I don't think it's worth it, though. There is land number 6, which is pretty redundant. We know they don't have a land in their hand, so if I just tribute to Urborg as Sapperling, then they just have 5 non-land cards to play around with, which almost any 5 collection of cards can beat a 2/1 and a 1/3. So I don't think I can attack anymore. I think, sure, I get to poke for 1, but I have to draw something here. We're at the mercy of the top deck, which has not been particularly kind to us today. Yep, that's to be expected. Tribute to Urborg is not big enough to kill it now. And there's land 7. Past the turn it is. We cannot get through the 4/6. Now our domain 4-color opponent has completely stabilized. And here come the Mirror's Outriders. Phyrexian Espionage is one of the better draws we could have here. It's another land and a Destroy Evil. Destroy Evil's okay, but there's no way we're breaking through their current board state still. Send in a 4/6 and a 4/4, that'd be 8 damage to the face if I let it in. I mean, let's Destroy Evil the 4/6 at least. Probably have to chump at this point. The odds of either of these getting in are super low. They're probably playing another creature post-combat. Yup. It's a Techyova. Hello, land number 9. Well, I wanted to save tribute for Miria's Outrider now that I have enough instants and sorceries engraved, but I think I need to tribute Techyova before they play land number 7. Start attacking me with flyers. Drop a swamp past the turn. And get a chump block in here. They drop a Niall, bring back the Cult Conscript. Argivian Cavalier. It's big enough to double block and trade into Outrider. But now they get to scry 4 every single turn. So they're just going to top deck the strongest cards out of the top 4 of their deck every turn. Since their domain is 4. Bird Migration for Plains. That's very weird to me. Figured they would do that pre-combat to have domain 5, or just hold it in their hand to make a bunch of 3/3s, but I think we're about to see why they did that. No, we are not. They're just going to play the plains past the turn. Yeah, Herd Migration could have just made like 4 3/3s. I guess they were 1 mana off still, but I would have gotten greedy and just held it. We have made it to land number 10. And we'll pass the turn. Cruelty of Gix. They're going to chapter 1 it. Check out our land in hand. Very nice. Next turn they search their library for any card, put it into their hand. Turn 3 they reanimate the best creature from any graveyard. They got some bombs here. They have a Herd Migration and a Cruelty of Gix in there. Yeah, we've got no shot. They're now at the point where they're drawing the best card of the top 5 every turn. They're drawing the best card in their whole library. And they're reanimating a Techyova or an Outrider. My only hope is that they completely forget about protecting their life total, and then maybe they attack too hard and we attack them for 7. Since they do lose 3 life from the Cruelty of Gix. Tremendously unlikely. Yep, there's a Fires of Victory. It's a removal spell, and it draws you a card when you play it. So there goes our 5/5, and they draw a card. Now Niall hits us, and they draw another card out of the top 5. Drop a Sojourner. Final draw is take up the shield. That is not going to be nearly enough. Here we are now for game 3 on the play. Once again, no white source is pretty unkeepable. We will definitely keep this hand. So we've now had to mulligan all 3 games. Not a lovely day. We've got an Elas Ilkor on turn 2. We have a Phyrexian Missionary on 4 to bring it back from our grave to hand. I probably get rid of the Writhing Necromass here, because we're already going to be removing one of our creatures from our grave, so this is going to be a 6 or 7 mana card, which is a whole lot. So we'll dump the Necromass on the bottom, I think. Alright, drop our turn 2 Elasil Core and pass the turn. We're playing against another red deck. 2 mountains is going to start it off for them. Here's the immediate lightning strike. No, fires of victories. They are probably blue-red. I'm going to hold off on missionary here. If I hit one more land, I get to missionary kicked and pick up Elasil Core. Our opponent is on Thrill of Possibility, discard a mountain, draw 2. We did not hit a land, so let's just Shadow Prophecy main phase. So that I can play land for turn and then pass. Okay, now still on 4 mana, so can't kick a Warhorse. Do like getting an Elas down before I make all these tokens. Let's kick the missionary for Elas, I think. Or Ellis. I like calling them Ellis. It sounds pretty... It's like the character from Left 4 Dead 2. It's like when you play your magic card, it's like, I will summon Greg. Like, what? Yep. Greg, the bookkeeper. Alright, opponent is doing well setting up card draw here. They've got a Phyrexian Espionage for draw 2 now. So they have good value. They're not under any pressure yet, really. So they've got all the time in the world to try to come ahead and card advantage and win a late game. They do drop a Get to Amplifier now. We have not found land 5, which would have been beautiful. Because then I go Elas and Cavalier, and then I can kick Warhorse next turn. I guess we'll have to make do with Elas into reinforcements, which is still good. But it would have been nice to do something a little more. I guess I get to hold up, take up the shield this way, and if I don't need to cast it, then we reinforcements. Well, it looks like they're probably killing Elasil Core. Hovering over our board. They're down to 4 cards in hand. Lightning Strike the Missionary. Okay, that's fine if I can keep Elas. I think Elas is more important than Missionary. They might have removal for both they're planning on casting. I think I'm going to tap out of Take Up the Shield to try to double block the Amplifier. How do they get me if I do this? With another instant speed burn spell, but that would already just kill Elas, so I think they would have done that. Timely Interference would get me -1, -0 to a creature and they draw a card. I'm at 22. Maybe I just don't take the bait here and I just let them in. Yeah, I probably should have thought of that first and just saved the reinforcements till the end step. The odds of them playing enough instants or sorceries to kill me at 22 life are so low. That we just let this thing in. And even if they do a decent amount of damage, like, we're going to keep gaining life playing more tokens potentially. And definitely with Take Up the Shield, yeah, there's the Timely Interference. So that would have been much worse if I went for the block and they did that. Balmore, Battle Mage Captain. Uh-oh. Tribute to Urborgs, where are you at? I've got the Mana Worker. But I need a tribute for that thing, or that's going to kill me fast. Trample to their whole board and +1/+0 when this thing's already getting +2/+0. So every spell they cast, this gets +3/+0 and trample. It's going to be a lot of damage. Probably just play a Cavalier and hold up a Take Up the Shield or Destroy Evil. Block their, like, 10-2 with a 2-2. All right. Land number 7 for our opponent. Shore up on the amplifier immediately to make sure that path is clear. Well, it certainly is. I already can't target it with any removal. And then one more spell in hand. What's going to be? Battle Wing Mystic. Ooh, so they get to just straight up draw 2 cards. It's pretty phenomenal. 3 mana, 2/1 flyer, draw 2 cards when it enters the battlefield. Good gravy. And a double block here's fine. Could also go single block, take up the shield that plays badly against some instants. This plays really well around an instant, because then I can take up the shield in response and pop off. Okay, I think if they had an instant, they would have used it to keep the amplifier on board, so let's go for take up the shield. To keep the Cavalier and gain a bunch of life. Sick. Still lose the 1/1, but that's fine. Okay, Destroy Evil's just not going to kill anything, so let's just kick a Warhorse and send in the whole squad. Give me the GG, and they're going to scoop it up. Fair enough. They're like, yeah, Warhorse is going to do it here with an Elas on board. All right, we found at least one victory here. Feels good to not just 0-3 drop. So we are now 1-2, heading into round number 4. Here we are on the play for game number 5. I strongly dislike the mana in the hand again. No black source for the knight, no blue source for the espionage, so only 2 potential castable spells. I'm just going to refuse to start every single game with a 6-card hand. We'll keep a 7 this time. If we find a blue or black source, having either one of these cards available makes the hand pretty great. Reinforcements into Espionage into Captain's Call, or reinforcements into Knight of Dusk Shadow into Captain's Call. Alright. Moment of truth. Black source, blue source? Blue source it is. Good enough. Let's go. Poke for 2, they are down to 18, and let's draw 2 cards. Find the swamp as well. Now we are golden. Playing against a domain deck with green, blue, and white so far. Here's a turn 3 Juniper Order Root Weaver to play as a 3 mana 3/3. A million 1/1s doesn't really break through a 3/3 right now. Knight of Dusk Shadow would threaten to, but not really. Probably just be mana efficient and play the Captain's Call. Nael, Abazoa, Aeronaut. The chunky blockers are arriving. Luckily I can destroy evil that one, which is good. Because we do not want that to pop off. Set up all their draws. I think I'd rather drop a Knight of Dusk's Shadow than a Cult Conscript, because it can keep attacking into the Root Weaver. It can find some really good kills on double blocks. Namada, that is an incredible card. Well, my only hope is they block this. They do not block this. I now have no hopes. Just play the Cult Conscript then and pass. 3/4 reach. Whenever one of our cards dies, they exile it and get a 1/1. They can sack those 1/1s to get +2/+2 to something till end of turn. Well, +2/+2 to Namada, or sack 2 of them to draw a card. Yeah, that is just phenomenal. Now they have a Joda's Codex for card draw. Some Mana Worker. It's a second black source for Knight of Dusk's Shadow, I guess. Codex is going to win a long game. Namada's going to win a long game. Just going to do what I can to see if we can end the game quickly. Send in the squad. Do go for a Namata block. I think I take up the Shield Resolute reinforcements. Stop them from getting a 1/1 off Namata. I would assume Namata doesn't give them a 1/1 when they kill tokens. Because when it would die, exile it instead. When they exile it, get a 1/1. They can't exile the token. I guess they could. They probably still get a 1/1. If they still get a 1/1 here, we just have no shot. But maybe they don't get a 1/1 off of tokens, and then it's our best bet. They're down to 8. They do get 1/1s off tokens. Alright. GG. Mossbeard Ancient as well. Nice. Oh, they can't gain life. Still a 7/7 blocker. Well, if we draw Elas Ilkor, I could just sack my whole board to the Warhorse. That is our out. But we are now in the sit here forever phase of the game, where the domain decks have just tons and tons of incredible draws, and our deck has like 1 or 2. So not a phase of the game we ever want to end up in, and we have ended up in this phase. Double block, boom, triple block, boom, boom, boom. Take 1, 2, 3. Do like 4 damage to them and lose a bunch of stuff, and then they get a bunch of saplings and I can't ever attack again. So unless we have a literal lethal attack, I don't think we're sending in. If I top deck an Elas, I'm at 8 mana, so I can sack 6 things in 1 turn. And deal 6 to them. Full Domain Weatherseed Treaty. They are very close to killing us quickly. 7/7 and an 8/8, they get to give something +5/+5 trample next turn. We're at least gonna have to lose some creatures. Ooh, stall for time. Eight creatures. 10 attackers, but 1 has menace, so it's almost like 11. 3 damage in guaranteed right now. If I stall for time, that's 5-ish damage guaranteed. Pretty much 5 damage guaranteed, put them to 3. If I wait till their turn and they make a couple attacks that don't threaten lethal, we can let it all through and then they have less blockers. If they just try to hit us for like 20 or something. And then maybe I can cheese out lethal with this stall for time. Like, they're probably going to attack us with at least 1 creature here to profit off of the Weatherseed Treaty's final chapter. Yeah, so that's 1 less blocker. Unless they play more blockers, which is possible. They've been drawing a lot of cards. They probably do. Citizen's Arrest on the Warhorse? Wow. That's very bad. Now Elastil Core is not out. Oh. Okay, that's still pretty bad, because now it's kind of like I have 2 less attackers because that one had Menace. And now they can gain life, so I really hope this doesn't mean they have another Mossbeard Ancient to cast immediately. Okay. Alright. Are we gonna get anywhere off of Stall for Time? Oh my god, maybe. We draw into Resolute Reinforcements off of it? For 2 more attackers? 5 blockers. 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 attackers. 11 minus 5 is 6. It's not quite lethal. Put them to like 2? So close. They can easily lethal me if I don't kill them here. Because they still have Rada, Mossbeard Ancient, which means they attack with a 12-12 trample on the crackback. Feels like I need to like barricade into Elas. 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 damage in. These 1/1s all get in. Chump. The 5/5 chump that. But they can block to where Rada and Rootweaver both survive, and they get 2 saplings off Namata. And they kill me on the crack back. I attack with those 2 and see about whittling down their board state a tiny bit. To kill the Necromass, they gotta block with multiple creatures, and I kill multiple creatures. So Rootweaver trades into a 1/1 by sacking a 1/1 here. But then they get another 1/1 sapling. Well, the skeleton can never come back because it gets exiled from Namata. So I can't do skeleton things. Which sucks a lot. Oh, they've got an artillery blast too? Well, draw a card off that one. Okay, we're back to all in on Elas because now they have 50 more blockers because of Namata and Queen All in All. They got 2 blockers every time one of our creatures died, actually. Not even just one of them. Good lord. I don't have the mana up to barricade. Or buff that enough. Now there's 0 outs in our deck. I mean, Barricade could still, theoretically, over time, sack enough creatures for Elas, but they get 2 1/1s every time I sack something. So we just die too quickly. We're back on that 0 outs train, and they're going to attack with a 12-12 Trampler because they have 9 1/1 blockers. Yeah, no, I'm good ending it here. No outs. That was a brutal draft today. I don't think this deck was nearly that bad. This was a perfectly average Black-White Aristocrats deck, like I said before, but we just got paired up into 4 decks that were better than ours. 3 100% were definitely better. Maybe the deck we beat was not better than ours overall, but that red-white deck had just an absurd amount of token producers. They had like 2 or 3 copies of Argivian Cavalier, 4 Keldon War Colors or whatever, the 3-1 that spit out 1/1s. They had the Baird that we couldn't interact with for a long time. That Boros deck was absurd round 1, and then our other 2 losses were both 2 domain decks with bomb rares. And obviously there was no deck we could have drafted in our pod with any kind of bomb power. Just a really unfortunate run of it. I don't think there's a massive amount we could have done in the gameplay. I could have stayed in that last game a little longer, or the second concede. Both of the domain decks, we weren't like immediately dead. Yeah, I really don't think there was a lot I could do. I was looking over the deck list every time I scooped. I did technically scoop like 1 turn early in all the games where we would have died in 2 attacks. But I was looking through the deck list and there was no combination of cards that was coming back from those. So I don't think there's really anything we could have done gameplay-wise, except for maybe if I wanted to really grind it out, but I do not have the patience for that today. I'm cool with the concessions. I think that was fine. The odds of winning was under like 0.1% in all of those games at the point of concession. The only thing we really could have done differently was, as I said, when I pivoted to white-black, I really just wanted to do something non-blue because I've been doing so much blue-black in March of the Machine and so much blue-white and blue-black in Dominaria United. So I think I pivoted into white-black very aggressively when I didn't need to, but I said as much during the draft. I wouldn't really call that a mistake, and more just me playing or drafting a little bit loose for variety's sake to try to get more entertaining content to you all, to try to do a wider variety of decks. If we had just stuck to blue-white for the whole draft, that was probably the strongest archetype available in our draft pod. Outside of that, I don't think we drafted particularly poorly or played particularly poorly. We just ran up against some better decks that were just from higher quality draft pods, which happens. So 1-3 is the deck record for today. Pretty big bummer to end it on, but you can't win them all. That is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons very much for supporting this channel, as well as you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, just make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.